Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Max Miners Report here on the AAT Sports Network. I am your host, Adam Mack. We're going to get right into it. Obviously, it is a big day in the world of Philadelphia sports, so we're coming to you a little bit early. Don't want this show to interrupt, obviously, the big Eagles game at 4:20 tonight, but we're going to get right into it. As you can tell by the title, we're going to talk about two things today. IronPigs are very hot right now in the midst of a very, very intense playoff push, as well as which players down in the Phillies farm system are we most likely to see in a Phillies uniform on the opening day next year. Let's start with the IronPigs right now. As of last night, they are one game back of the International League, one game above Buffalo with one game left in the Buffalo series. Huge series for them. With just 12 games left, spots 1 through 5, all determined by 3 games. Big push for them. Some things I'm really starting to notice with them is the hitting has really started to come around there, as well as the pitching. Started earlier this season, the hitting was incredible. You had guys like Derek Hall, Drew Ellis, Weston Wilson, all big bats. Bunch of guys ended up going up to the Phillies for a little bit of short stints, coming back down, and all turned out to be phenomenal players. Even with the loss of Jake Cave to the Phillies, but adding in Cody Clemens, the hitting has really kind of stepped up and been very, very consistent this year. But for me, in the second half, has been the pitching. The pitching was the Achilles heel throughout the first half of the season. You had no consistent pitching. You had a couple of bullpen guys that were good. A lot of them made it up to the Phillies. Yunior Marte, Luis Ortiz, McKinley Moore. But no one really kind of stuck it up with the Phillies. Jake Hoffman was probably the only guy that actually pitched very well in Lehigh Valley, got called up to the Phillies as a bullpen guy and stayed there throughout the rest of the season. But pretty much the bullpen has been an Achilles heel for the IronPigs. However, in the second half of the season, the pitching has been phenomenal. Big issue at the start of the first half, Lehigh Valley had no real starting pitching. However, coming into the second half of the season, Nick Nelson, a former Philly guy, spent majority of the season in AAA with Lehigh Valley, a little bit of AA, a little bit of single A, has been the best pitcher. 7-2 in the year, 3.45 ERA. Has been incredible, lights out guy. I know we'll talk about who we can see in the Phillies opening day roster next year. He is going to be a guy I'm going to talk about, not very in detail because I'll talk a lot about him right now. However, down the road, I think we could see him up in the Phillies for this playoff push. Looking at him, he has a lot of experience as a starter and a lot of experience as a bullpen guy. He's been phenomenal. He's been very consistent. He hasn't lost a lot of his mojo throughout the back end of the second half of the season. Has the playoff experience from last year. I think we could see a move for him to go up to the major leagues and rejoin the Phillies roster. I made a point last week. Dylan Covey, I don't see a point to him at this point on the roster. I think Nick Nelson's a good fit. However, I would hate to lose him for this playoff push that the IronPigs are in. However, down in AAA, if there's anyone that you should have circled on your radar, it is going to be Nick Nelson. He has been phenomenal when it comes to hitting. Seems like there's a few different guys that have been getting the calls up. Weston Wilson's one. He just returned to the IronPigs after, being called up to the Phillies to go on the paternity leave for Trey Turner. Cody Clemens has been a guy that, I still think he's in serious contention to make a playoff roster for the Phillies. You have Scott Kingery, who has a lot of MLB experience. Drew Ellis, who's had a little bit of experience. But we're going to get into another guy, kind of take us into our next segment of who we're most likely to see in a Phillies uniform next year. So we're going to go through some of the areas of the Phillies that are some weaknesses, as well as some different players that are free agencies. So of the players that are on the Phillies 40-man roster, Rhys Hoskins, Aaron Nola, Craig Kimbrell, Michael Lorenzen, and Scott Kingery are the 5 free agents for the Phillies this year. I'm going to start with Scotty Jetpack. It sucks. I don't think the Phillies are going to re-sign him, mostly because I think they're going to get outbid in the Scott Kingery sweepstakes. I would love for him to stay with the Phillies. I think he should be back on the Phillies roster. I made a push that Rodolfo Castro should be designated for assignment and Kingery should jump in. I really like what Kingery's done this year down in AAA. I think people need to start paying attention to him. Again, his first tenure with the Phillies didn't end very well because of the development, thanks to Joe Girardi. However, down in AAA this year, he has been phenomenal. He has a lot of versatility to play on multiple positions. Definition of a utility guy. He has stepped up as so much as a leader in that clubhouse. You can tell he's the guy that the players always lean on and look to for advice. A lot of conversations you've had with these players, they'll all say a lot of their credit to how successful the season they're having this year is thanks to Scott Kingery. So as much as I would love to see him back on the Phillies roster next season, I don't think we're going to. He could probably be a starting utility or a utility guy on many different MLB teams. So just because of that, I don't think the Phillies are going to be able to re-sign him. I think he's going to get that second opportunity at a shot at the MLB with another team. It's going to be a low-end team, Oakland, Colorado, Washington, teams of that caliber. However, those are the teams that are going to probably give him a larger contract. Unfortunately, that sucks for the Phillies. So you can probably count him out. So let's get to the other guys. Aaron Nola, again, another guy I think is going to be playing elsewhere next season. So therefore, you need to replace Aaron Nola in the rotation. Looking at AAA, I know I just hyped up Nick Nelson a lot. I see Nick Nelson more long-term as a bullpen guy. There's definitely some improvements we can see to that bullpen. Obviously, you have your guys like Sir Anthony, Jose Alvarado, who are there for the foreseeable future. Craig Kimbrell, I do hope the Phillies re-sign him. He's been a great addition to that bullpen, really re-energized his career. I think the Phillies re-sign Craig Kimbrell. So you have the back at your 7th, 8th, 9th inning guys all settled down. You do need to get some of those early guys, some of those setup guys. I don't see Nick Nelson stepping up into a starter role. I do, however, see him being as a bullpen guy with his MLB experience. He has been phenomenal in AAA, probably the best pitcher for the IronPigs this season, regardless of first half, second half, starter, or reliever. I really liked what he's done this year. I think he is going to be a bullpen guy. They can make improvements to the bullpen. So Nick Nelson's a guy when it comes to the bullpen. I think we can see Griff McGarry is another guy, really solid in Double-A. I think he's going to be long-term more of a bullpen guy. However, he did get to Triple-A and he has struggled tremendously. He's been put on the developmental list twice now. Not a great sign for him. If he can have a solid spring, solid end of this season, I think he might be able to find his way onto the opening day roster. However, after what I've been able to see, he has struggled a lot. He doesn't look like he has a lot of confidence right now in AAA. I think he starts next season in AAA. But back to the point, well, I guess we'll focus on the bullpen. Last person in the bullpen, I think, in the minors that we could see for the Phillies is the Phillies. Bring it up. Phillies 7th rated prospect, Orion Kerkering. For me, he's been the best relief pitcher in the Phillies farm system this season. He started the season off in low A in Clearwater, was quickly promoted up to high A with Jersey Shore, and then just about a month ago was promoted to Double-A in Reading. He's been phenomenal at each step. Talking with Josh Berber, the voice of the Clearwater Threshers, he looks like an 8th, 9th inning guy for an MLB team already. Strong velocity fastball, good movement on his curveball and sliders. He has been phenomenal. The stats show it. Watching him pitch, it shows it. Strong command of everything. First not 9 innings he pitched in low A, he didn't give up a hit and struck out 8. Same thing going into Jersey Shore, struggled in his first 2 starts and then picked up right where he left off in Clearwater. Unhittable, a real the type of player that when he enters the game, you know you're going to get the save. Not going to say he's a next Mariano Rivera, but he's a Mariano Rivera type player. When he enters the game, you know you're going to get the best pitcher out of your bullpen, and you know you're going to be put into a great position to win. Craig Kimbrell is not going to be the closer for the Phillies forever. Orion Kerkering, for me, is the future closer for the Phillies. That's the type of player he is. That's the strong velocity that he has. That's the command of the strike zone that he brings to the table. I think that he's going to make the Phillies roster next season. He's a surprise that many people aren't talking about right now. I think he's invited to big league camp next spring. I anticipate him having a very strong spring and being a surprise pick to make the Phillies opening day roster in 2024. I liked what he brings to the table. He's a surprise player. Not many people are talking about him. However, he's watching him play, looking at his stats. He's been one of, if not the best pitchers in the Phillies farm system this year. He's not, according to MLB Pipeline, he's not projected to be ready until 2025. However, he's a name you need to circle. Even if he doesn't make the opening day roster, he definitely will be a member of the Phillies 25-man roster at some point in 2024. I'm willing to guarantee that. So that's what the two guys in the bullpen right now from the minors, Nick Nelson, Orion Kerkering, I really anticipate will make the jump for the Phillies on opening day. Going back to what I was talking earlier, Aaron Nola more than likely will not be a Philly next season, presuming he doesn't, unless he signs a team-friendly deal. You also have Michael Lorenzen, who is a free agent. Same thing with him. Lorenzen has struggled since that no-hitter. Don't anticipate him being re-signed after his struggles, or if they even move him to the bullpen. However, with Aaron Nola, again, he's going to want a huge $200 million contract. I don't see the Phillies willing to sign him to that. I anticipate Aaron Nola will be pitching somewhere else, probably St. Louis. Seems like the type of place he's going to go to. That opens another spot in the Phillies pitching rotation. And for me, there's only one starter who's worthy of that, and that's going to be Mick Abel, the Phillies' number 2 prospect, currently with the Reading Fighting Phils in Double-A. He's been phenomenal. He's been lights out. He looks like a future Cy Young caliber player the way he pitches. Started the season off only going about 3 or 4 innings. Now he's been getting up to 6, 7 innings in his starts, only giving up 2 or 3 hits, striking out close to 10 in each outing, not giving up many runs, not walking a lot of batters, strong command, solid pitcher. He's been, in my opinion, the best Phillies prospect this season. I see him making that Phillies opening day roster and making the starting rotation. I am more than likely he will be invited to big league camp over next spring. Again, with the loss of Aaron Nola this offseason, it's going to open up a spot in a rotation. Presuming the Phillies don't go out and sign somebody, opens up a spot for him in the rotation. If they don't, also we'll be battling with Christopher Sanchez for that 5th starter spot, presuming, again, they don't sign anybody this offseason. However, Mick Abel has been solid. If they want to look for a cheaper option out in in the minors, rather than handing out a giant contract, Mick Abel is the way to go. Andrew Painter, with the Tommy John surgery, is not going to be ready until 2025. Griffin McGarry is not, for me, not going to be a starter for the Phillies. He's going to be a bullpen guy long term. Other than that, there's a big drop off after those 3 for top prospects for the Phillies, starting pitching wise. Looking at AAA again, Nick Nelson's that only guy right now that you could probably circle and say, should be a big leaguer. But again, I see him more as a bullpen guy. For me, Mick Abel has been phenomenal. He showed it in the futures game. He's been showing it all season long. He's been consistently solid all year. For me, there's no reason why he's not in AAA right now. And for me, he's a favorite to make the Phillies opening day roster, be a starting pitcher, probably the number 5 pitcher behind, Wheeler, Taijuan Walker, Ranger Suarez, and Christopher Sanchez. So there's a few guys right there. The last one I want to kind of get into, kind of a weird position, is the backup catcher position. We have 2 possible options. Obviously, our catchers, bearing on some crazy story, JT is going to be the starting catcher next season. However, I still think the Phillies can improve at the backup catcher position. At some point, JT is going to need to start phasing out. He's behind the plate more than any other catcher in Major League Baseball. At some point, they are going to start phasing him out, and that number is going to drop. Garrett Stubbs, to me, is not a solid backup catcher, and I think the Phillies have a very valuable option, and that's going to be Rafael Marchand. Started the season on the 60-day injury list and has since come back and has been one of the best players for the IronPigs. Probably one of the big reasons why they are on this incredible playoff push and just a game back of the International League standings. So just looking at his stats this year, batting slash line of 299, 389, 429. This past series of Buffalo, he's 3 for 7 with 2 doubles, a home run, 6 RBIs in just 2 games. He's been phenomenal. I think we can improve without Garrett Stubbs. And the big thing for Rafael Marchand is he's out of major league options. The next time he goes up to the Phillies, he's going to be designated for assignment. And he's the type of player that is not going to clear waivers. Some team is going to see him and want to improve at their backup catcher or even as a future starting catcher. Phillies have to make a decision on him right now. For me, Garrett Stubbs is not worth it. He's not been a great catcher, not been a great hitter. We can improve at this position. And with JT getting older, with JT having a very big workload, they're going to start to phase him out. They're going to start to slow him down and again, for me, eventually probably move him over to first base long term. But for right now, I anticipate JT get, starts behind the plate, really starting to go down. That means the backup catcher position has become one of the most important areas for the Phillies. I've not been a huge Garrett Stubbs fan. I know he's a great locker room presence. Like everyone's argument to the players that love, he's a great locker room presence. But locker room presence doesn't always necessarily lead to big wins. I think we have a valuable backup, someone that is not as great as JT, but is much better than Garrett Stubbs. Rafael Marchand is probably one of his offensive production has been one of the best things for the IronPigs. Such big bats. He's batting in the cleanup position. He's had a lot of, he can hit the ball long. He has pretty good speed out on the base path. Defensively, he's been phenomenal. Great technique, great arm, great reaction time, great decision making, really good command. When he's really stepped up is when the pitching really stepped up in AAA for the IronPigs. Not to say that he's the credit for everything, but we all know what catchers can do for the pitchers. Pitchers, once he started to get going, once he was fully back from injury, once he was, back to kind of the normal Rafael Marchand that we've known, the pitching really did step up. So we're seeing that not only is he playing well, but the pitching's also been playing well. And when he hits, everyone else hits around him. I credit him a lot for the run the IronPigs have done this season. So for me, Rafael Marchand is going to be on the Phillies big league roster next year. Backup catcher, I think they'll move on from Garrett Stubbs either via trade or just release him outright on waivers. So those are the 4 guys for me that could make the Phillies opening day roster. Other guys looking at the pipeline just don't necessarily think they're ready. Justin Crawford, I still think, is another 2 years away. Aiden Miller is still 3 or 4 years away. Carlos De La Cruz, possible option. He's a big bat for the Phillies. Just kind of for me, we just got to see. Big thing for him, he is a corner outfielder. Not quite sure we have space for him with Schwarber, Castellanos, Harper, Marsh, Johan Rojas, guys like that. So not quite sure what we're going to see out of him. Simone Muzziotti, more than likely, there's just not a place for him. Could be a possible trade piece this offseason. So that kind of wraps it up for the Phillies. They don't have a strong, MLB ready farm system right now. I think in a couple years, end of next season, this conversation is much different. However, Phillies don't have a lot of MLB ready guys. Andrew Painter, again, was more than likely going to make that opening day roster next year. However, with the injury, the Tommy John surgery, we won't see him until 2025. This is going to open the door for Mick Abel, which I love. I've loved what he's been able to do this year. I'm really excited. And as hyped up and as excited as we are for Painter, I think we should have equal excitement for Mick Abel. So I really do firmly believe we have a future star right there. Looking at the rest of it, I don't see the Phillies re-signing Scott Kingery, even though for me, he would have been a very good utility guy. I think the Phillies go with Nick Nelson in the bullpen. I think they go with Griff McGarry in the bullpen. Phillies have options, and then in the last one, obviously, Rafael Marchand, to backup catcher behind JT to help phase JT out a little bit so his workload is not as bad and we can get more out of his career. So, again, another very fun episode of the Max Miners Report here at the AAT Sports Network. Didn't want to go too crazy today. Well, too late in the day. We'll make sure everyone gets ready for this afternoon's Eagles game. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe to all the shows as well as myself. We'll be back Tuesday for the Frankly Phillies podcast where we focus on the Phillies. We'll be back next Sunday for another episode of Max Miners Report. I am your host, Adam Mack, and we will